Hello, if you're watching this, I'm Daniel Smith and I'm joined with Harry Clarke, and today we're both going to be interviewing each other in regards to our placement, future development, management styles, and just some other stuff. So, Harry, I believe you got some questions.
I do, yeah. So basically, with my portfolio for the management section that I'm choosing for this video is I'm kind of focusing on my experiences with my line manager. So I'll just start with like a kind of little brief introduction into him, and then I was going to kind of gauge your experiences, and so we can draw any similarities and differences. So on my placement, my line manager was obviously responsible for overseeing my placement. He was also the head of HR, and he was also the head of compliance, which was the department that I worked in, which is kind of the verification and vetting part of the business. And early on, I could kind of gauge his style of a manager. Was very kind of go away and do it yourself. Don't ask me any questions. Just get on with it and figure it out.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
which initially I struggled with because I'm the opposite. I'm like ask questions, build up an understanding, and then kind of throughout, I kind of do need that reassurance that I'm doing it right. So like for example, if I'd finish doing the compliance for a candidate, I'd want to ask his opinion just to quickly double check it to make sure it's fine before I send it off, just so I prevent any issues further down the line. So like if I cleared a candidate to go and work in a school, but it was wrong and they didn't have the correct documents for whatever reason, in case like I missed something, I didn't want them to be placed and then find out in like a week's time that they're not legally allowed to be in a school.
yeah,
So
yeah.
in my head, I just thought might as well ask just to double check, to get an expert's opinion, and then I can send it off. But he didn't like that. He saw that as me not engaging properly, which obviously initially that's especially my first like professional office like role that didn't really sit well. So straight away I kind of knew that we were going to clash. And then eventually, when I asked questions, he kind of started to get more and more. I don't know. It was like unprofessional teasing, if anything. And we did really start to form a really bad business relationship, which ultimately led me to basically not being in any contact with him. If I needed help, I'd ask other members of staff, or if I needed to have appraisals done, I had to go to another manager because I couldn't trust that he'd give an objective kind of feedback, because it felt very personal. His weird attacks that just came out of nowhere. He wouldn't do it to anyone else, and I got on with everyone else. It was just directed at me, which was weird. Even the other placement student didn't get the same grief as I did, and I still can't really explain it. So basically, I just wanted to kind of gauge what your experiences were with your manager, and if it was anything similar or different to what I experienced, really.
What's really interesting. Thankfully, my relationship with my manager was not as bitter as what you've just described.
Yeah,
When I first joined, we got given a whole month of training.
yeah,
It was like a very helpful scenario to really get your foot in the door and know what you're doing. And
yeah,
that with the previous placement student who was then leaving.
yeah,
So I had a good understanding after a month, but obviously you're not going to learn everything in a month. So when he left, I was sat next to my line manager.
yeah,
There's two sides to a coin with her. So in one regard, she could be incredibly helpful if you
mm,
had questions, if you had queries.
yeah.
But her management style was very, she'd nitpick and she'd micromanage.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Did you
So
like that, or
no, not all.
No.
We have two managers in the office. I had my line manager and then the whole finance manager.
Right. Okay.
Oh, the finance manager essentially lets you get on with it because she trusts that you're going to get on and get the job done.
Right.
And I feel that's a way more motivational management style than constantly looking over someone's shoulder going, "What are you doing? Have you done this? Have you done
Yeah.
this?" It
Yeah.
just motivates you to want to do it.
Yeah. That's interesting because my line manager was similar. So you know how I said he was very kind of distant and didn't want me to ask questions.
Yeah.
Well, if I asked questions that were constructive, he wouldn't give me feedback, but equally, he'd be buzzing around behind me. It felt almost like he was waiting for me to slip up. He'd be like, "Why have you done that?" And I was like, "Well, okay, I've done it wrong, but please approach it a little bit more professionally. 'Cause you're just not going to motivate me, as you said. It's weird." Um, but no, yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from with that. Definitely.
So I suppose like I do actually have a question for you about management, and I suppose it would be so obviously you didn't like his management style.
No.
So what have you learned about management in your placement, and what would you do differently if you were in a position of leadership?
Well, so I feel like this is something I've touched upon in my portfolio as well. I feel like a very important aspect of management, and it's what I've learned from my placement, is you need to be a good coach and you need to possess the necessary coaching skills that come with the job. You can't just be able to kind of tell people what to do. You need to kind of get on a level, and you need to be someone like myself can approach if if you're struggling with something. But he really didn't have the capacity to coach well. Like, for example, I think I touched upon a few of the skills that a coach should have.
Yeah,
They basically need to be able to give feedback correctly, and they need to kind of tailor their style to the person they're trying to help. So, for example, if because I said that I enjoyed, well, not enjoy, but I responded well to asking questions and kind of being not spoon fed, it's more kind of guided in the right direction to then become independent. He
yeah,
didn't recognize that that's what made me comfortable and that's what made me like, well, that's what made me productive. He just saw that as a clash with his personality and his traits of a manager and a teacher, and he just didn't respond well to it. And I think that's where the resentment started. So what I learned from management is not all managers have the capacity to kind of adjust. It's more like they see themselves as a superior staff member, and they're just
yeah,
supposed to lead by example. Because there was other managers in the business who were great at offering support and tailoring themselves to benefit the rest of the work staff. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of what I've learned from management. What about you? What have you kind of gathered from the
you
experience?
you kind of touched on something that I agree with in
Mm.
that he did consider himself like a bit above you
Yeah,
uh, and stuff, but also about how he expects you to be perfect.
yeah,
No, nobody ever is. I think what I've learned about management, and it's when I was speaking to a separate manager in our company,
mm.
and he said something to me about motivation, and
Right,
it stuck with me because it's spot on. Like it's about how to be motivational, you can pander to a group because each individual is different. One person may be motivated by money, one
yeah,
person may be motivated by friendship. So
yeah,
you have to be able to recognize what makes someone want to go into work and be as productive as possible.
yeah,
The way he did that was he allowed one person to go on the early lunch because he liked to go home at lunch because he was just around the corner. So he was like, "Yeah, you can go, that's fine." another person, he allowed him to come in early so he could leave later because he had his own stuff going on. He did like personal training in the evenings.
Yeah.
So he changed his contract so he could come in early, so he could leave early, and this motivates you to want to go to work because it's a happy environment.
Yeah. Yeah, it shows that the business cares as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, because it's pandering to individuals, and in our company, it was very easy to do that because finance was a team of about 13 people.
Right,
So,
okay.
Paul, I know you worked in a bit of a bigger sort of office, but it can, I suppose, if you show you've got time for people and you understand people's needs, it'll be the best way to motivate. And obviously, uh, motivation is should be a leader's top priority.
Definitely. Definitely. So that kind of brings me on to my other question was I basically in my section of my management heading, I've put what do you think makes a successful manager? And in this, I used it to evaluate the kind of experiences that I got from my manager and their ability to coach and to manage. And I kind of came up. I've kind of basically said that, in my opinion, I don't think he is a successful manager. But I just wanted to gauge what you think makes a successful manager, so then I can maybe perhaps apply that to my situation and evaluate it further.
That's quite a difficult question because obviously success is measured by the individual. So,
Yeah,
like, for me to look at my manager, she probably considers herself to be successful
yeah,
because of the position she's in.
yeah,
But
yeah.
then,
I think just to kind of point in the right direction. So I basically concluded that my manager, my line manager, was a successful manager in terms of his ability to carry out his. So he was a really good head of HR. Like, there was if someone had a problem legally, he could, he would help. He would offer the guidance. So he was good at that part of the role. He was good at the head of being at the head of compliance. He was good at managing everyone, but I'd have said he wasn't. He couldn't be deemed an overall successful manager because of his inability to offer the kind of interpersonal skills or coaching to everyone, like especially myself. So, what about that? How would you kind of evaluate your manager in the different aspects of management?
yeah, I agree with that. In terms of being good at a job, being able to do that job successfully and more. My line manager was successful. She's been able to climb the corporate ladder
Yeah,
and do it easily because
yeah,
she's clever.
right.
Um, but in terms of managing people, yeah, I know what you mean now. She's not that great. She's not well liked. And
Right.
I know being a manager is not about being liked. It's not about making friends.
No.
But like I said before, our other finance manager is well liked, and she is successful because
Yeah.
she is able to motivate and to help and to teach.
Right.
And I think you've got to be willing to sometimes put your own job on the back burner to be able to help and raise others. And I feel like my line manager sometimes put her own needs first.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is. There is certainly a difference between kind of managing people and kind of understanding people. And I think the successful managers are the ones that can understand people rather than simply just having the title and being a higher rank.
Yeah,
Um,
being a manager is not always about just being incredibly good at accounting. Because if you're not able to manage, lead, and motivate a team, you're not a manager.
Certainly not. No. Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you've said that because you've kind of, from by the sounds of it, your manager's similar to mine. I know I've had a slight, an extreme
Yeah,
case of it, but yeah, it seems very similar. To be fair, have you got any other questions for
I
myself?
do. So, how has this placement experience helped you develop as a person?
Well, I think so. Before my placement, I probably would argue that I was fairly like unmotivated. Um, just with like there was times where I just weren't organised. I was just unmotivated. But I think with this placement, it gave me the skills, like the timekeeping, the organisational skills, the motivation to carry the job forward, which I think I did successfully. Um, and I've also learned a great deal on office etiquette and people, like office relationships. And I think that it's made me develop into a, a better person and a better professional as well. And I think it's just an invaluable thing that's going to stick with me and develop further throughout my professional career. But yeah, I think I'm like almost like a different person. Like
Yeah.
if I look back before placement, I thought I was fairly confident, and I thought that I'd be able to carry out the job further. But I just remember that initial month was so hard, was so draining because it was completely alien, and yeah, I just found it really difficult. But I feel like I've developed a lot. How about yourself?
Yeah, I was the same. I was just not motivated. You couldn't even say lazy. Uh, yeah, and just getting up and going to job and having the responsibility that you have to do something so other people can get on with their work. It
Yeah,
was like it was a pressure that was just unknown to me. And yeah, I mean, speaking to new people was something that I've never really enjoyed doing. Never have been part of my personality. And then you go into an office, there's 12 new faces that you've got to get on with, and that you spend all your time with them.
yeah,
It does help your confidence. It changes you, like how you talk, how you like judge things,
it
because
does,
like
doesn't it?
you the even at university still there's sort of that like playground mentality where you like look at people and stuff.
Yeah, it's all very like kind of childish, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you go to an office and then all of a sudden your best mates with a 45-year-old man playing pool. Just never would have put you together, but
No, but it just works because as you say, there isn't that kind of childish mentality. It's just everyone's together, just working for common goal. You know.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think definitely the placement does help you grow up and
Oh,
it
definitely.
makes you understand what responsibility is. And yeah, it's honestly made me a better man. Not to be big-headed. So I suppose just one final quick question for you, Harry, is how has your placement helped you plan for the future? Like you don't want to go back into the business or whatever like you were in before, I presume.
No, well, I think I probably would have gone for a similar role in the future. It was just I just can't go back to because I don't know. There was just something. It was the people are fine. It was just my line manager it made it too difficult. But I would consider going into a compliance role, or I think it was consultancy as well. So I have actually been looking into um, compliance roles or human resources and consultancy, um, and I have been applying for roles that are similar. But yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I actually opted in for the placement in the first place. I had no idea what I
Me,
wanted to do.
me
I
too.
I just knew that I was going to end up in an office, probably, or well, hopefully, but I had no idea what. So I hoped that doing this placement year would kind of help me find find that I've been missing, and I think I have found something that I am kind of passionate for. So yeah, I think it would be recruitment, uh,
Yeah.
if anything. Yeah, because obviously that can be consultancy or human resources. How about yourself? What are you kind of
Yeah.
planning?
I've always been into numbers and always been quite good at numbers. So going to do accountancy has opened my eyes that I don't like it.
All
So
right.
yeah, even though I'm still working there now, it's not something I want to do long term. I want to go somewhere where there's a clear path to climb the ladder and I also enjoy it. And as much as I enjoy the office and the people there, I don't the work's quite easy what I do, but I don't enjoy it day in, day out, which is something that I want to gain when I do leave uni. So
Yeah.
I suppose what I've learned and how it's helped me plan for the future is that I need to look for something else.
Right. Have you got any kind of inkling as to what you'd go into, or is it still up in the air?
I'd love to go into sales.
Right.
I really would love to go into sales. It just seems like, I mean, a year ago I would never have thought of it, but now just being able to talk to people and try and sell someone on a product or a placement or something just seems like it quite rewarding.
Yeah.
And
You
also,
you could look into consultancy because
yeah, well, that's what it is, isn't it? Recruitment consultancy.
yeah, and obviously I haven't had any experience actually being a consultant or kind of trying to pair a school with a student, for example. I haven't had that experience. I've just kind of seen and heard and experienced the process of it. So I don't even know if I'd be able to do it, but I feel like another thing that I've learned from the placement is you just don't know until you try it. Like I didn't think I'd be able to do the role that I did at placement, but after a month it just becomes routine, doesn't it? And
Yeah, definitely. I suppose, I mean, just to end this, well, first of all, Harry, thank you for talking to me.
yeah, thank you.
And I suppose just the final point would be to anyone who's listening, do a placement year because it is one of the things you'll ever do.
Yeah, I second that, definitely.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, so thank you for watching and cheers.
Thank you.